Tyler from Aspire Sports. I'm going to be giving you my Week 11 wide receiver start and sits. If I leave someone out that you're kind of contemplating whether you should start or sit, drop it in the comments below. We'll answer any questions you have. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. So the first one for me is going to be AJ Brown. I do believe he's a start this week. I know that the matchup's a little hard, but it doesn't look like Jimmy Smith is going to play this week. So that means Marlon Humphreys is going to move outside. And Marlon Humphreys on Pro Football Focus has two of his lowest grades by Pro Football Focus when he's moved out to the outside this season. So he hasn't been that good outside. Also, AJ Brown's probably going to see him like 50% of the time because when Marlon Humphreys moves outside, he stays on the right side of the formation, where Marcus Peters stays on the other side and AJ Brown lines up on his side of the formation. So he's probably going to see him like 50% of the time. But still, regardless, I don't care because I do like AJ Brown. I think he's a stud wide receiver, and it's not the greatest matchup, but honestly, it's not that bad of a matchup. Yes, last week was not very good, but he also did drop a touchdown pass, which would have made it better. So I do believe he's a high upside wide receiver two with back end wide receiver one potential, obviously, because he's AJ Brown. He looks really good. So let's go into the next one, Will Fuller. I do think if you have better options, I would definitely start them over Will Fuller this week. He has a tough matchup with New England. I don't know if Stephon Gilmore comes back this week. He has been practicing in limited fashion throughout the week, so hopefully he comes back. And if he does, then I don't want any part of Will Fuller. This is a really tough matchup for him and Deshaun this week. So if you have anybody that's better, I would highly suggest starting them over him right now. They're giving up the fifth fewest points to the wide receiver position this year. That's New England. And Bill Belichick, not to create like a narrative, but Bill Belichick takes away your best option on the offensive side, and he's their best option. So I think he game plans around that, and I don't think Will Fuller has a big week unless he catches like a 50-yard touchdown pass, which he can obviously do. But if he doesn't, I don't think it's going to be that good of a week. So I think he's like a low-end wide receiver two this week. Let's go into the next one, Diontae Johnson. And I think Diontae Johnson's honestly a wide receiver one. I will say this. All these Steelers wide receivers are in play for me. Jacksonville right now is giving up the fourth most passing yards in the NFL this year. Since Chase Claypool has taken over the starting role in week 7, the Deontay Johnson, JuJu, and Claypool are seeing 67% of Ben's passing attempts of the targets. In the past 2 weeks, they're seeing 72%. So that means that they're just it's basically Ben and these wide receivers. That's who he's targeting, which he should be because it's probably like one of the best trios, if not the best trio of wide receivers in the NFL. So yes, I do think all of them are in play. If you have any questions about them, I honestly think that they're like wide receiver twos, like very high upside wide receiver twos, but I think he's a wide receiver one just because he's seeing targets, massive targets every single time he plays. The only time was Baltimore, but he was a little bit banged up. The games that he was banged up in, he didn't see that or left early. So I think he's a solid wide receiver one, back end wide receiver one. The other ones are high upside wide receiver twos. Let's go into the next one, and that's going to be Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy was very disappointing last week. I was very big on Jerry Jeudy, but it's also his quarterback play. His quarterback play right now is not good. Now he might get Brett Rippon. I don't know if he plays, or if it's going to be Drew Lock because Drew Lock's also hurt. But regardless, this is not a good matchup for him. He's moved to the outside now. He's not playing in the slot anymore. And Miami has two really solid wide receivers on the outside, Byron Jones, Howard. So I don't expect a very good performance from him. I expect him to be like a wide receiver three, probably a low end wide receiver three, unless he scores a touchdown, obviously, but they're incredibly difficult to predict. But I think he's like a low end wide receiver three this week. So next one, let's go into Amari Cooper. And I do think Amari Cooper is a start this week. I've seen a lot of questions like, should I start him? Yes, I get it. The Dallas offense hasn't looked that good this season. They looked decent against Pittsburgh, but right now gets a pretty good matchup in Minnesota, who's given up the fourth most points to the wide receiver position this week or this year. So I think he's a pretty solid play. He's going to definitely see a decent amount of work, and I expect Dallas to be down in this game. So I think they're going to have to play catch up, and that should just mean more opportunities for him. So I do think he's a solid wide receiver two play this week. And let's go into the next one, and this is going to be Robert Woods. Really, this is all the Rams wide receivers. I really don't want any part of them this week. I do think that they're like honestly wide receiver threes this week. It's a very tough matchup against Tampa Bay. Yes, we did see DJ Moore have a good week, but that was also because he partially caught a long pass. So I don't want any part of them. I think that this is going to be like a low scoring defensive affair with both of these teams kind of duking it out. So I would play Robert Woods over Cooper Kupp. because Cooper Kupp hasn't, like last week, he actually saw the lowest out of the wide receivers. Actually, Josh Reynolds saw the most wide receiver snaps. So I would probably play Robert Woods over Cooper Kupp, but I just think that they're low end wide receiver threes. So no thanks, I'm out on them. And the next one's going to be Jamison Crowder. I do think Jamison Crowder is a pretty solid play this week. I think he's honestly like a high upside wide receiver two with potentially wide receiver one, especially in PPR leagues. He sees a ton of volume and is going to probably see a ton of volume in this game. Last week or last time they played against the Patriots, it wasn't the best game. Thankfully, he scored, but also that's against Patriots, who Bill Belichick, once again, like I said, will take away your best option on the offensive side of the ball, and he's obviously their best player. I don't expect the Chargers to do that. What he's going to do is he's going to line up in the slot against Tavon Campbell, who is a 2019 undrafted free agent. So I think he's going to be a solid play. He hasn't been that good in the slot this year. Campbell hasn't, so I think he's going to have a really good game this week. So he's a start for me. And let's go into the next one here, and that's going to be DJ Chark. I do think DJ Chark is a solid play this week. Listen, I'm a Steelers fan. I know the Steelers really haven't been able to cover wide receivers this year. They've been struggling. As you can see, 11 most fantasy points to the wide receivers. And Chark he would have had a really solid week last week if the ball just didn't die in the air in Green Bay. He would have had like a 50-yard touchdown pass. So, going from 56 to basically 100 in the score would have been a really good play. And I think this week he's a solid play. I think that the Steelers should be up early in this game, meaning more opportunities for the passing attack. So I do think Chark's a pretty good play. I think he's like a mid wide receiver two this week, with high upside potential. So let's go into the next one, and that's going to be Allen Lazard. I think Allen Lazard and Marquez Valdes-Scantling are both sits. Even if Devontae Freeman doesn't play or Devontae Adams doesn't play, I don't want any part of both of them. This is a really good Indianapolis defense, and he's just coming off of injury. Maybe he, is on a limited snap count, but regardless, I don't want any part of him. And yes, for all the Marquez Valdes-Scantling truthers out there, I'm sorry, but he's going to go back to being a dud. He had a really good week last week because he scored on like a 60-yard touchdown, and it's not going to happen week to week. He basically scored half of his points this previous week in one play. So no thanks. I'm out on him. I don't think he's that good this week. I don't like Allen Lazard, but season long, I do like Allen Lazard. And let's get into the next one here, and that's going to be Robby Anderson. Really, it's all the wide receivers in Carolina. I think that they're all really good plays this week. One of them's not going to probably hit, but I think Robby Anderson will hit, so I like him the most out of this game. They're going against Detroit, who's given up, as you can see over here, the 15th fewest, but also they just gave up 390 yards to Alex Smith. And I don't believe in their corners, Desmond Trufant and Jeff Okudah. I don't like either one of them. I think that they give up a decent amount of yards, and especially in this one, if Teddy Bridgewater is healthy. This also relies on Teddy Bridgewater. If Teddy Bridgewater is healthy, I do like him a lot this week. So let's go into the next one, and that's going to be Higgins. Now, it's really hard for me to say this, but Washington has also been very good against wide receivers this year. They're giving up the second fewest, especially on the outside. They're pretty good on the outside with Darby and Fuller. They've both been pretty good against wide receivers this year, so I think he struggles a little bit in this one. I think Tyler Boyd is going to have the better game out of all of these wide receivers in Cincinnati. I mean, I wouldn't even say AJ Green. He's just not creating any separation right now. So I think Higgins is like a low end wide receiver two, high upside wide receiver three this week. Where Tyler Boyd, I do think he's like a high upside wide receiver two because he has a really good matchup in the slot. So me personally, I think he's a sit this week, Higgins. And the next start for me is going to be Jakobi Meyers. I think Jakobi Meyers is a solid wide receiver two this week, and if he can score a back end wide receiver one, the hardest thing is going to be scoring just because around the goal line they're going to probably run it in. Cam hasn't really thrown that many touchdowns on the season, but if he can score, I do think he's a solid play. He gets Houston, who, well, first I want to say the past 2 weeks, he's seeing a 40% target share, 21 targets, which is tied for third in the NFL. We'll probably see Bradley Roby, but Bradley Roby in coverage really hasn't been that good this year. So I do think he's going to have a solid week this week and possibly back end wide receiver one if he can score. That's truly what I think his potential is. And especially in PPR leagues, he's going to probably see a ton of work. So I expect him to have a really good day. And the last set for me here is going to be Travis Fulgham. I think that Cleveland gets to Wentz, and I also think that Rager is going to be the wide receiver one in this offense going forward. I think as the offense continually gets healthier, it's going to be Fulgham. He's going to have these week to weeks where he might have a decent week one week and then a pretty subpar week the next week. And I do think that this week is going to be a little bit subpar just because I think Wentz is going to have a rough time getting the ball out of his hands due to the pass rush in Cleveland. So honestly, I think he's like a low end wide receiver 3, possibly flex play this week, but I don't think he's anything more. So we'll see. We'll see. So if you disagree with me on any of these, please leave it in the comments below. Tell me what you think. Or if you have any questions, leave it in the comments below as well. We will be live tonight, Thursday night, from 7 to 8:30, answering any start and sit questions you have, any betting questions you have, DFS plays, whatever the case may be. We'll be live answering any questions you have. So with that being said, thank you for watching. We truly appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button, like if you like this content, and have a great day.